This video is about Creepy, Eerie, and Vampirella magazine format comic book series published by Warren Publishing, which featured mostly painted covers about horror and science fiction. Presented are covers from each series separately and chronologically, all with cover art by Ken Kelly from 1970 to 1982. As the covers go by, lots of fascinating information is presented, including information about Ken Kelly and Warren Publishing. However, the information is not intended to correspond to the specific cover being shown. Ken Kelly was an artist known for sword and sorcery, horror, and science fiction, and he lived from 1946 to 2022. He was the nephew of Frank Frazetta's wife, Nellie, and early in his career was able to study at Frank Frazetta's studio. Frank Frazetta is often referred to as the Godfather of fantasy art and was one of the most renowned illustrators of the 20th century. All three titles, like the humor magazine Mad, were black and white magazines intended for newsstand distribution and did not submit their stories to the comic book industry's voluntary Comics Code Authority. Cover art featured many phenomenal artists. In the U.S. market, horror comic books reached a peak in the late 1940s through the mid-1950s, when concern over content and the imposition of the Self-Censorship Comics Code Authority contributed to the demise of many titles and the toning down of others. After this, from the mid-1960s to the early 1980s, horror comics flourished as black and white horror comic magazines with color covers which did not fall under the code. Warren Publishing was an American magazine company founded by James Warren, who started publishing in 1957. The magazine size versus traditional comic book size was done with the intention of avoiding the censorship of the Comics Code Authority. Initially based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the company moved by 1965 to New York City. Warren Publishing's initial publications were the horror, fantasy, science fiction movie magazine Famous Monsters of Filmland and Monster World, both edited by Forrest J. Ackerman. Forrest J. Ackerman, who created or at least had a strong hand in creating Vampirella, lived from 1916 to 2008 and was an American magazine editor, science fiction writer, and literary agent, a founder of science fiction fandom, and a leading expert on science fiction, horror, and fantasy films. He and Myrtle R. Douglas were the first people to wear costumes to a convention, to the 1939 First World Science Fiction Convention in New York, and can be considered to have started the cosplay phenomena. He was also an early member of what is today known as the Los Angeles Science Fantasy Society, the oldest continuously operating science fiction club in the world. Warren soon published Spaceman magazine and in 1960 Help magazine, with the first employee being Gloria Steinem. After introducing what he called Monsters Comics in Monster World, Warren expanded in 1964 with horror comic stories in the sister magazines Creepy and Eerie, and selling for 35 cents as opposed to the standard comic book price of 12 cents. By publishing graphic stories in a magazine format to which the code did not apply, Warren paved the way for such later graphic story magazines as the American version of Heavy Metal, Marvel Comics Epic Illustrated, and Psycho and other series from Skywall Publications. An early editor was Archie Goodwin, who would become one of comics' foremost and influential writers, and he helped to establish Warren as a leader in its field. James Warren's bad health, combined with changing tastes and business problems, led to internal turmoil and editorial turnover, and Warren declared bankruptcy in 1983. More videos like this one, short and longer, can be viewed at the Comic Excitement Convention Horror playlist and the Science Fiction playlist. Please like, comment, subscribe, and click the notifications bell.